like down there.
Yep, all right. I can do that.
Thank you. I just did just see about it. Yes, thank you for the heads up.
So, yeah, only a few minutes, there might be a couple people checking in. Has everybody had a chance to go on and see for it? Oh, yeah. How many people go so that we can do presentations, like, present them up?
I don't know, we should see some people use things and
Yeah, I've been talking about it, and we did the presentation. Do you want the lights on for this, or photos? Yeah, I think, I'm trying to right, so, whatever is better to you. Jess, would the video work better with lights on it?
It seems to be just fine. It looks like it's just fine.
Yeah. So, yeah, probably pop on.
Okay.
No, it's actually. So,
And then this for noise, I'll probably. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the thesis presentation and being on the work. My name is Crystal Shank. I'm on the panel with David Pepper and Erin Dowden. And I've had the pleasure of working with Nico this past semester on her thesis work. And I've been very impressed by like the scope and the generosity of it. And so she'll be presenting her work and talking about it so you can learn a little bit more. And then after her presentation, she'll be talking for about 30, 40 minutes. It will be open up to the panel first to ask questions, and this is a great chance for us to like dig a little deeper and learn a little bit more. This is not a critique. It's just a chance to get to know more about her process and her ideas and inspiration. And then we'll open up to you as our audience if you have additional questions, things that you want to know, please do feel comfortable to ask. After that, we're going to invite everybody to leave, including you, Nico, and we'll kind of talk amongst ourselves and get some feedback together before you can invite you to come back in. So please welcome Nico first. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Nico. Thank you for coming to my thesis defense. My work centers around living with schizophrenia and my to present my experiences in a gentle, peaceful way. I have created an installation with video, dysglycemia, and the representation of my child at home. I created an installation because I feel that when I write, there is so much that gets lost in translation. I feel that it is harder to conceptualize the way I experience the world without visuals. While hallucinations affect me deeply, I feel that cognitive confusion that comes with an episode of psychosis can be just as damaging. In this state, I'll stare at trees or flowers, unsure what they are. I'll try to read, and it won't make sense. And when I try to write, the words come out just incomprehensible. I'll write the wrong word or spell it incorrectly, sometimes both. My hallucinations are usually extra copies of what I'm looking at, moving shadows, or people running across the street. From an auditory standpoint, the world sounds like a crowded restaurant, honking cars, footsteps, or deep sighs. I become so overwhelmed by stimuli that I can't distinguish what's real and should be paid attention to and what isn't. My perception of the world becomes fragmented and obscure, and I feel completely isolated. In the past, when I found myself detached from reality, even the most comfortable places in my home felt unwelcoming and lonely. In my research, I found the idea of non-places as coined by philosopher Mark Hall. Hall describes the difference between place and non-place. If a place can be defined as relational, historical, and concerned with identity, then a place which cannot be defined as relational, historical, or concerned with identity will be a non-place. Non-places include convenience stores, gas stations, office plazas, hotels, and airports. On some level, they are designed to be slightly uncomfortable, to discourage people from making themselves comfortable, and to encourage its occupants to leave. It's the psychological effect, and all notes that even these non-places can become places. He uses the example of an airport. To a traveler, it is a non-place, but to an employee who has relationships with people in the building, it is a place. Episodes of psychosis give me the pervasive psychological effect of a non-place. I can't recognize anywhere as familiar. My own blankets and furniture look and smell like they belong to a stranger. I have trouble understanding when people speak, and through my eyes, everything looks like it's being seen through a prism. There is significant chromatic aberration that clouds my vision. Sometimes I can handle my cognitive symptoms and hallucinations, and it isn't so bad to hear extra noises or have my vision clouded. I think a good analogy for my symptoms would be that it feels like I have to run errands while carrying heavy grocery bags. I have things to do, and I have a time limit on when they need to be done by, but there is so much involved in making sure the delicate bags don't rip that I feel like I'm moving through sludge. Sometimes it isn't so bad when the bags feel lighter. That is to say, I'm experiencing less severe symptoms, and I can speed through my tasks. Sometimes my symptoms are so severe that it feels like I'm carrying 100 pounds in plastic bags while trying to make my way through a narrow store aisle with short corners. Things are just harder. Most of the time I can get stuff done, but there are times when I can't comprehend what I'm reading, and as frustrating as it is, I know I have to come back to it tomorrow. I struggle with the order of operations. The urgency of one task over another is hard, if not impossible, to distinguish. Sometimes I'll finish writing a paper due in a month, while I have another one for the same class that's due tomorrow. I'll make a list and know that I need to do a specific task today, but the visual and audible noise becomes too great and I can't make sense of anything. I try to release tension and not let myself become too stressed. I can tell I'm stressed when I hear sirens and trains everywhere. I hear radio static crackling. I see people run into the road in front of my car or stand at the side of the road staring at me. I see the shadows the size of cats flicker across the floor. I see larger shadows in rooms, in doorways, outside windows. I can't stop tapping things and even a number of times. I retype every letter twice, 4 times, 6 times, sometimes 8 to make sure there's an even amount. It takes me longer to write. I can't make eye contact, and it feels physically painful to force it. Before I was medicated, I would wander around my house crying. It felt like everything was wrong, like I was trapped in the wrong reality. Being at home felt like I was a guest in a stranger's house. It was cold and unfamiliar. Objects and rooms in the house looked different in size and color than usual. I've been medicated for 2 years, and thankfully I don't experience bad episodes unless I'm under extreme stress. When I'm experiencing a severe episode, I do what I can to survive. I feel like a prisoner in my own head. I know that everything is alright, and my life is peaceful and stable, and the feelings of panic and loneliness will pass. I make tea and take long showers. I feel stuck in an emotional state of a non-place. I hear alarming noises and see everything as if through a prism, and I feel this deep sense of dread and fear. I know there's nothing I can do beyond what I've already done except wait for it to pass. It's uncomfortable, but I have to make peace with it until it passes. I'm grateful to not feel that way very often anymore. Most of the time I'll have smaller shifts in my perception. Emotionally I'll feel alright, but my vision will be clouded by doubles or colors that aren't there. It almost looks like a VHS tape. The shapes are there, but the definition is fuzzy. It's incredibly frustrating when I can't really understand things. I try to push through it, but sometimes I just can't. Sometimes I'll try to use the calendar app on my phone and keep hitting calculator. I can't understand why it doesn't take me where I need to be. In situations like this, most of the time I catch my mistake and can get myself to the right place. But sometimes I put in the time in the calculator instead of the calendar and don't realize until days later when the date has passed. The intent of my thesis project is to create a space to allow connection and empathy to grow. I feel this is an area of the autism spectrum that people don't see much representation for. I feel that a lot of current representation is alienating and paints people on the autism spectrum as the other, as a group of people that are to be pitied and not at the mercies of the monsters they see. There's a lot of romanticizing the idea of madness. It isn't like that for me. It was scary when I was younger and didn't know what was going on or how to stop it. Now, it's mostly annoying. I know what steps to take to help myself avoid a strong episode. I take my medicine, meditate, exercise, and try to keep myself in low stress environments. It can be scary in the sense that I don't want to feel that way and I can't control it, but it's mostly an inconvenience. I'll have things that I need to do and suddenly start feeling the shift. With less severe episodes, I still write my papers or go to work, but it's harder to read, write, and think. Because of the lack of presentation, I feel that people don't understand when I try to verbally explain. My emphasis is on creating experiences that make it more real to others. I want people to have an interactive way of literally walking through their perception of life, and I want to demystify my personal experiences with schizophrenia. To represent my perception of the world, I created an immersive installation with 2 components. A 6-foot-long wall made of wood painted the color of my childhood home. The wall holds one infinity mirror, 3 crystallized neon liquid acting as a window. Beyond the wall is a 5-foot triangular configuration of mirrors. The front-facing mirror is 2-way to allow the viewers to look inside. The top is uncovered, and a small projector inside the piece reflects footage of the forest across the entire installation. The video is about a minute long and plays on a 1-hour loop. It is important to me to make my work with my hands. While I respect artists that only design their work and have others make it, the process of making is integral to my creative practice. It is deeply soothing and meditative to create. I feel that creating art grounds me and helps alleviate feelings of emotional distress. This is one of the main reasons I make artwork. The wall structure of my installation went through several iterations. At first it was unpainted and perfectly uniform, like the siding on my house. As I thought more about it, I decided to make the siding disjointed. I wanted it to look like it almost will crawl towards you. I wanted it to mimic the unsettled emotional state that I'm in during an episode of psychosis. My thoughts feel scattered and I can't think properly. My surroundings feel unwelcoming and menacing, almost if there's something out to get me. I matched the color of the wall to my grandparents' house, which my family affectionately nicknamed Pink House, because that was the place that I felt the most safe and loved during my childhood. I chose to rough up the paint on the wall and the window because I haven't seen that house in a long time. I was thinking about natural decay and the passage of time. This is also why I decided to frost the window piece. When I was 6, my parents and I left my grandparents' house and moved to rural Illinois. My time in Illinois was deeply traumatizing. There were a lot of stressors and people that my parents couldn't protect me from. Members of the extended family on my mother's side were torturing me emotionally and physically. I was always too small, too weak, too sensitive. My parents had me when in high school, and they were both going through college and working while they were in Illinois. There were times when we struggled with food insecurity. My parents would feed my sister and I, but not have anything for themselves. During that time, I started to feel like reality was wrong. I started to see flashes of color and UFOs. Our house was in a thick forest, 10 miles from the nearest town. Every day, I would go out into the forest on my own to play. Sitting in the forest and watching the trees sway was one of my favorite things to do. Even now, when I'm feeling stressed, I like to go out and sit in the forest near my house and meditate. I shot the video for my thesis in the forest near my parents' house during the summer, so it's very green. Summer is my favorite time to meditate. I love the ambient warmth from the air, the sound of the wind rustling through the leaves of the trees, and the intense breeze of the floor. The video is slow moving, but the way it's run across the walls can be dizzying. I put 2 different videos of the forest on top of each other, one at 50% opacity. I wanted to obscure the image of the trees in a similar way to my hallucinations. It's hard to pick out any one tree, and it becomes visual noise. The nearest fragment of the video contains many moving shards. The combined repetition of images created by the mirrored shards and the visual noise effect of overlaying the videos accurately represents the emotional state I'm in and the visuals I see during the episode. My artwork is visually informed by yo-yo personas and faded frames. Like Kusama, I use light and mirrors to create the illusion of space. My first piece with mirrors was an unintentional homage, but over the years her work has become very important to me. I relate to her struggle with hallucinations and depersonalization. She portrays her fears and hallucinations as a way of self-soothing. I portray my hallucinations for similar reasons. My installation includes a lot of stimuli. It can be disorienting at first look. I'm trying to create something that's true to my experiences. It isn't immediately scary, and there are no monsters. It's beautiful, but it can be unsettling. I hope that with repeat viewings or more time spent in the installation, it becomes less overwhelming and more meditative. This repetition gears my relationship with my hallucinations. I'd like the audience to imagine needing to go to school, to work, and that suddenly everything in the world shifts a bit. Sometimes I see movement that isn't there, sometimes it's hard to understand what I'm seeing at all. I feel that the projection technique I'm using captures how the world looks to me. Despite the serious nature of my piece, I want the audience to interact with my artwork. I would love for people to take photos and selfies and enjoy the space. In 2015, I saw Diana Tater's exhibit, The Sympathetic Imagination, at LACMA. She's interested in fostering a connection between people and animals through the use of video projection. My goals are similar, although I hope to be more structural components. They have had collections of dolphins scattered across the rooms, bees on the ground in another, and old television sets with videos of the sun in different colors stacked on each other. Her videos, like mine, are images from nature on the move, but hers include animals, while mine are strictly natural landscapes. I loved watching the audience interact with her work. People were smiling and laughing and asking strangers to take photos of them. I want my work to have a similar effect. I hope that allowing the audience to interact with a representation of my hallucinations will help erase a little stigma. I'm deeply drawn to light. Before I was medicated, I had a terrifying episode during which I saw a neon cowboy from the Pioneer Hotel in Las Vegas moving over me. Strong hallucinations like that aren't typical for me, and it made a strong impression. After that, I became obsessed with neon and went to every shop I could find in Portland, begging someone to teach me. I found my mentor in Night Heist. He told me he wouldn't teach me, but I could come back tomorrow and mess around with the class I made. He made me a pro-term and corrected me when I made mistakes. Eventually he began teaching me, always telling me that he wasn't and that he doesn't teach. I learned a lot about neon and from him. Neon is cool to the touch. You can pick up a neon unit and not get burned. I feel that its commercial past lends an air of loneliness. Neon is often a feature of dog places. It is used for hotel signage, beer signs and convenience store windows, and ambient lighting at airports and theaters. I love to work with it because it feels like meeting with life. If cared for properly, a neon unit can last up to 80 years. I chose to crystallize the neon to represent the emotional shell I retreated into to protect myself as a child. It grew over the years, and I became jagged and sharp. It took years of therapy for me to be able to open back up about myself and be vulnerable. During severe episodes, it feels like the shell grows back, and I become isolated and unable to speak. I love the interaction between the manufactured nature of neon and the way that crystals grow organically to clouds over the smooth glass. I've always loved crystals and geodes. I love the color, the shape, and the way they reflect light. I feel that they are one of the most beautiful things in the natural world. I didn't know you could grow them over objects until I came across the work of Crystal Shank and Tyler Thrasher. Both artists have worked with growing crystals directly on developing generations. Crystal Shank has been invaluable to my work with crystallization and in general. She has given me access to her wealth of knowledge through demonstrations and one-on-one troubleshooting, and has always pointed me in the right direction for research. The diversity of surfaces Tyler Thrasher has been able to grow crystal on is astounding. His work is very chemistry focused, and he pioneered a way to grow almost in 8 days rather than 7 months. Through watching Tyler Thrasher's Instagram videos and carefully studying his work, I was able to make changes to my process that affected his crystal's growing power. By studying these artists, I was able to begin experimenting with growing crystals on objects. It wasn't until my third or fourth crystallization experiment that I began to wonder about growing crystals on the line. While Thrasher's art with crystallized insects speaks to death, I feel that my use of crystallization speaks to a living space outside of life or death. Crystals and neon are not alive, and both of these exist over relatively long periods of time. During an episode of psychosis, I feel like time dilates. I feel removed from the world, as if it's going on without me, and I'm trapped in a quiet and unsettling space. I use mirrors to amplify my light. Mirrors also serve as a metaphor for self-reflection and the echo chamber that occurs when I retreat into myself during an episode of psychosis. They also create duplicates that mirror the way my hallucinations look. I get nauseous if I try to model things on the computer, so making things with my hands is essential. It just feels right. Fabrication neon is a very time-intensive and delicate process, and each piece is made by hand. Glass comes in 4-foot-long tubes. When bending neon, I plug up one end of the glass tube with a fork and connect the other into my blow post. On one end of the blow post is a fork with a hole in it. The other end has a mouthpiece. I hold the glass tube over 2 propane fire torches and slowly rotate it. When it becomes malleable, I gently bend the glass and blow a small puff of air into the hose. This keeps the hot glass tube from melting onto itself. After making the bend, I lay the piece on a brass screen covered table to cool. Once all the bends have been completed, it's time to plug the electrodes to the sign and bombard it. The electrodes are welded to the glass piece using an electrode holder and a small handheld torch. Bombarding is the act of running electricity through the sign to prevent dust and impurities in the glass. It is done on a special table where the glass is hooked up to a neon manifold. The manifold is an apparatus that allows you to vacuum out the air and replace it with neon gas. I run the little glass tube on the tubulated electrode directly to the corresponding tube on the manifold. This is where gas enters the sign. The wire pieces of the electrode are connected to a power source. The power source is switched on, and the sign is filled with thousands of volts of electricity. I put thin sheets of mica between tight bends to prevent electricity from shooting through and breaking the glass. The amount of electricity going through the sign is lethal, and if the sign was touched during this part of the process, it would kill the person who touches it. After bombarding the sign with electricity, the vacuum pump connected to the manifold is used to pull oxygen out of the sign and replace it with neon. Once the sign cools, it can be welded off the manifold and is complete. When I'm at the installation, I would like the audience to feel comfortable asking questions about how I see the world. I'm hoping that through these questions and through the installation, some preconceived stereotypes will be challenged or erased. I've noticed in the past that people aren't sure how to talk about schizophrenia with me. They worry about wording. I don't mind if the audience uses words that are rough around the edges, as long as their intentions are good. I want to help educate people, and it's hard if people don't know how to talk about it yet. I feel that it is cathartic for me to be able to discuss how I feel and have people want to understand. I want people to see that I'm not something to be feared. I won't hurt anyone, and schizophrenia doesn't inherently make me more violent or unstable. Like every mental illness, it can be managed. In order to understand the stereotypes I'm trying to challenge, I I had to understand what those stereotypes are. In my research, I found an article by Patricia R. Owen called Portrayal of Schizophrenia by Entertainment Media, a content analysis of contemporary movies. In the article, Owen analyzes portrayals of schizophrenia in 41 movies and discusses the most common stereotypes. 42 characters from 41 movies were identified, a majority of whom were male and Caucasian. A majority of characters displayed violent behavior towards themselves or others. 1/4 of characters committed suicide. Media analysts have criticized movies for associating schizophrenia with unpredictable and often violent behaviors. People with serious mental illnesses are more likely to be the victim of violent acts than to be the perpetrators. I am a French Filipino woman, and I do not experience violent tendencies. My symptoms make it harder to understand the world around me, but I do not see demons or monsters. Episodes of psychosis can make me feel like I'm detached from the world. Because external stimuli is harder to process, it feels almost like I'm in a bubble. In continuing my research, I wanted to learn about how psychosis affects feelings of loneliness. In Loneliness and Psychosis, a systematic review, Lim et al. Affirmed that psychosis and schizophrenia have a quantifiable effect on feelings of loneliness and comfort. They reviewed several studies and proposed a theoretical framework for causation of loneliness in individuals with schizophrenia and psychosis. This is as follows. Mental health, depression, psychosis, and anxiety. Depression was measured in 6 out of 10 studies and was significantly associated with loneliness. Suderman et al. Found that positive and negative symptoms of psychosis related to overall loneliness and the amount of loneliness per week reported. Anxiety was measured in 1 study and was found to contribute to feelings of loneliness. Self-constructs, self-esteem, and self-efficacy. Sweetosh et al. Found that self-esteem directly influenced loneliness. Gray found that negative self-perceptions, as measured by the index of self-esteem, were positively correlated with loneliness. Negative self-perceptions, together with depression, significantly predicted loneliness over and above all other variables, such as social and family perceptions, duration of illness, and age. Social support, structural and functional social factors. Particular social network factors, both structural, meaning a smaller support network size, and functional, for example, lower received social support, are known to be related to higher loneliness. Schwartz and Romo found that increased social support and higher community activity participation predicted lower loneliness. Societal perceptions, internalized stigma, and perceived discrimination. Internalized stigma measures the extent to which afflicted individuals endorse mental illness stereotypes on themselves. For example, believing they are to value members of the community and anticipating social rejection due to their status. Perceived discrimination, which is the degree to which one feels that they are currently mistreated by others due to their mental illness, was also studied. Christian et al. Found that internalized stigma and perceived discrimination were highly associated with loneliness. Well-being, recovery, and quality of life. Rowe et al. Found that loneliness was less likely in individuals in recovery whose quality of life was improving. Although my quality of life has significantly improved over the past 2 years and my support network has grown, I still struggle with internalized stigma and negative self-talk. In my time in Illinois, it was evident to me that asking for help was a sign of personal failure and weakness. I don't feel this way towards others and actively encourage people to get help, but I'm still trying to work through allowing myself to be helped. Asking for disability accommodations for the first time this semester pulled me into a spiral of imposter syndrome. I felt like I was making it up or making a bigger deal out of it than it was. I kept berating myself for asking for help when I didn't need it, when others needed it more. But I did need it, and it made my life easier, and I had to reconcile with that. When cutting the wood for my installation, I asked my mentor in the shop tech to go to the site. The first time I tried to cut down the frame on my own, I looked for 8 feet of wood trying to get 2 30-inch pieces and didn't end up with any of the pieces being the right size. This is an example of my mental illness being frustrating. I know how to do it, and I measured each piece twice, but every time I cut it, it was wrong. On that day, I couldn't just push through my detrimental cognitive symptoms. I had to ask for help and come back when I was feeling better. For the longest time, I didn't tell anyone about my diagnosis. I didn't want them to treat me differently or so I couldn't do things. I pushed through and faulted myself for every mistake. I still struggle with asking for help, but I'm getting more comfortable with recognizing when I need it. When I was diagnosed, it felt like a death sentence. Everything I read about schizophrenia was either sensationalist or incredibly patronizing. I felt powerless and faced my illness and very alone. I was on medicine for a little bit after my diagnosis, but stopped after my grandfather passed and I sunk into a deep depression. 2 years ago, I started medicine and stopped drinking alcohol completely. I've been sober for 22 months now. At the time, I didn't know if I'd ever get better, but I knew that what I was doing wasn't working. I began taking my medicine and not drinking. I began to go on hikes and have avoidant trips with my fiance and my dog. These decisions were the catalyst for my mental health to improve. In these past 2 years, I've done so much more than I thought possible. I'm able to think more clearly, and if something needs to be done, I can do it. In the past, I fluctuated between gaslighting myself into thinking nothing was wrong with me and getting mad at myself for not being perfect, and feeling so ill that I thought I was completely hopeless. Now I feel more prepared to deal with my symptoms and more confident. I take care of myself and love myself and my life. This thesis project has been deeply cathartic for me. The ability to speak about my experiences and present my perception of the world to an audience is invaluable. This installation is the culmination of my work and experiments over the last 4 years. This artwork is intended for gallery exhibition. I feel that publication can accurately represent the experience of being in this space. I want it to feel all-encompassing, almost inescapable. If photos are online, the viewer can just scroll past and doesn't get the full, overwhelming experience. In thinking about the audience for my work, I realized that I want this to be artwork for everyone. Even if someone doesn't have knowledge of art history or theory, I want my work to be approachable. I think when you make work and put it out there, it's impossible to control how the audience reacts or interprets it. I'd like to have an artist statement accompany the piece in future exhibitions to explain the context, but it's alright if the audience doesn't take away what I intended. I think the act of putting my hallucinations and cognitive symptoms out there for people to experience is enough for me. If they want to learn more or ask questions, I welcome them. If not, that's alright too. Thank you for taking the time today to hear me talk about my artwork. Listening to what I have to say and experiencing my installation is the first step to understanding my perception of the world. It is my hope that I can help you to foster a deeper understanding of the schizophrenic spectrum. I invite you to come back and sit in this space as many times as you like. At this time, I would like to invite anyone to ask questions about my project.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I was really interested in the idea of place and non-place that you described. And I'm wondering if the room here is a place, a non-place, or both.
Yeah, I think by definition, I think it leans more towards one place because there's nowhere to really make yourself comfortable. There's no way to really foster relationships in space. But I think it can be a space, definitely in less COVID times, because people would be more interested in interacting and fostering connection in the space. I think as it is right now, probably not in place.
Okay. So, but because of the title, it's in place and non-place, that kind of makes me think that it's possible in the future that this can hold, both meanings for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's my hope. I've created an own place, but I would like to foster connection and have it go to a place.
I kind of had a similar question about, I'm imagining the best sort of experience, whether it be the individual one or, a group of people sort of experiencing it. So I think you kind of answered that already. First of all, thank you. I know this is supposed to be critique, but this is a personal bravery you exhibited and courage. It's like, I'm having a difficulty answering these questions. This is a real simple, just goofy question, but do you ever think about any kind of auditory phenomena to do with other sensories? You mentioned the healing of silence and things which must be satisfying. Did that ever come into the equation? That you have soundscape?
Yeah, I think I thought about sound, but I'm not sure how to edit it to make it sound like how I hear it. And I think until I figure that out, I'll probably have to be silent. I think eventually I would like to add a sound element to an installation like this. Yeah, I think it's hard to quantify or like explain because sometimes like I'll hear things ambiently, but then like once I realize I'm hearing them, they go away. And so I think like just putting train sounds or footsteps might be a little too heavy-handed, and so I have to figure out how to work that in. Yeah, I think in regards to your earlier sort of question, I think I've done pieces like this in the past with this projection technique. And the first one I did was in a little closet off of that big room. And so it was just a class critique. And I really liked people sort of huddled together and sat in the space and were taking photos of each other. I like that, and I also like when people just experience the space on their own. So, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm kind of curious, like I've done installations in the past that were like memories I've had, and it was really weird to take something that's in my head and put it out in the space, and then I almost became disassociated from it, and then also the memories changed. This has been living in your head for a long time as an artwork, but also as your experience with mental illness. How has it been for you to actually experience the space?
Yeah, I think it's hard because I'm like, okay, it's out there, like people can see it, because I think like my frustration is that when I write it down, it's not really understandable. Like you can picture, but everyone pictures things differently. And so I think like having a concrete example of what I see is really nice. I felt detached from it until I realized that I should paint the house the color of my childhood home. And then I had like this sort of emotional moment when I was painting the pieces, and I was like, oh my gosh, this looks like the siding of my house.
I have a little bit of a technical question on the crystallized neon is so interesting, as a material, and that's a new technique I haven't seen before. You talked about the potential for neon to last up to 8 years. What about the crystals? Well, is this, do they keep growing? Is it something that's stable? Like, what's the lifespan of that element of the sculpture?
Yeah, so you grow them in a tub of like saturated solution. So they don't start growing, or they don't continue growing after you take them out. In terms of materiality, I grew one a few years ago and it still looks the same. I'm not certain for this particular type of crystal how long it lasts. I think Yeah, I think, like metaphorically, I think, it's about the longevity of them. I would love to see this entire piece, last, but I'm not certain. Crystal, do you know how long?
What kind of solution did you use? Was it an alum or borax?
It was sulfate.
Okay, yeah, so that's not going to have any rehydration or dehydration issues, so they should be able to stay well.
Yeah.
I really liked that idea of time in your work and that you mentioned that, and you were looking back at, childhood history, but you're also looking forward to a future and just, doing some estimated, math, maybe 80 years is like the rest of your lifespan in a way, and looking back is, so there's something poetic about that, and I love the idea of this, the kind of time capsule idea, like you put this thing in and you're thinking about it living into the future. That's also just like a compliment, not really a question. But I guess another, if I can spin it into a question, I was thinking about scale because this project is in a relatively small scale. We talked about another version that was maybe even smaller. And I'm wondering if you thought about, this work seems to have the potential to take up more space if you're interested in that. Is that something that you're interested in?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I definitely like the capsule feeling of it, but I would love to have a larger space, where more people can interact with the exhibit. I think my only thing is that I want the video projection to bounce off the walls. And so I haven't tried it in a larger space. Initially I was thinking of having it in that large room, but then I worried with the vaulted ceiling it might not, the projections would be lost. So I think like a moderate size, yeah, and then I would probably add more elements.
Kind of curious, like when you do have hallucinations, does the world feel like it gets smaller or bigger?
That's a good question. I definitely feel like I'm in a bubble. And so like, everything, I guess like,
It's like, yeah, I don't know how to answer it, but I think that might help you answer in the future what size space it needs.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things you do a really nice job with is this feels like a good mix of metaphorical and illustrative. And so you have a lot of meaning that you've like woven into the small aesthetic choices, but then overall, you're trying to give us like a little window into your experience. And so, yeah, that room size might also be reflective of your experience. There was no question in there. That was.
no, yeah.
Right.
I think I feel smaller, when I'm feeling that way. I feel like small and scared, so I'm not sure, I haven't thought about the world around me. I think I kind of get trapped with my own, space. So, yeah, I think that's a good thing to think about.
I have a question about your research. So it sounds like you did this really deep dive into academic texts about the lived experience of schizophrenia and mental illness. I'm curious, did that help you understand your lived experience any better, or did it just validate it?
Yeah, I think it was kind of like one of those quizzes you take where everything made sense. Where, with the theoretical framework for causation rule-based, I was like, okay, when I looked it up, I was like, does everyone who experiences these things feel this way? Am I the only one who feels lonely? Which I am not. And so it was kind of like, oh, okay, these are definitely factors that I've noticed affect me. So it was very affirming.
Question. I'm thinking about your desire for connection, and empathy, and I think that you created that. I walked in the room without knowing the title, or I don't think I really, maybe I looked at the piece of paper, but I didn't really digest it, and I went in and just kind of tried to read, the space, and I felt I could derive, some meaning, some questions, and some connection through that without knowing about your lived experience where, this kind of title. So I'm curious about when you place your work in context in the future. You mentioned, wanting to have some kind of a artist statement or something to share. I also wonder about, have you thought about other ways of connecting with the audience for you? Because if you're the artist, sometimes if you put that installation, maybe you see some people at the opening and they say congratulations. But are you interested in maybe hearing or being in dialogue with people who have seen the work and, I imagine there would be potentially other folks with similar lived experience that you might connect with, or different lived experiences you might connect with?
Yeah, I think I would definitely be interested in hearing from people. I wonder about maybe creating a hashtag or something, and then just looking through and seeing how people interact with the space. I think I would love that. Yeah, I would love to create more connection. I won't always be at the exhibit, and so maybe some sort of hashtag or website or something, or even maybe I'll just check the gallery tag or something. I think just watching people interact even from a distance is nice for me.
I think also when you're working with, institutions like a gallery curator or, a museum or something like that. Also, this is just straight out advice. This isn't but say if that's something you're interested in, I think you can and should advocate for it and say part of what's important about this installation is that I have direct engagement with the audience. So I want to have a workshop, an artist talk, a roundtable discussion, or I want to be there, I need to be there in person if you can't install this without me, that kind of thing. If that's important to you, don't hesitate to advocate for yourself to make it happen. Because I think the work is very strong, and the way that you put it in context is part of it. Your strength, and you can be very empowered in that. So anyway, I already asked the question, I guess, are you interested in it? But I think you probably need some more time to think about that element of the work, but since you are interested in it, sorry, that wasn't a question.
No, that's really nice, thank you. Yeah, I think roundtables or workshops or things like that also would be good.
It's funny, I kind of, when I first was comment about it, walking metaphor and sort of illustrative. And so as soon as I picked up and saw the house image, it was like a punch in the heart, and I instantly kind of tied it back into this form. And honestly, before I saw this, I was like, oh, I'm going to interesting color for an interesting fence and this box, or didn't necessarily be something like that. How did you make the choices on sort of reducing the home, reducing the house structure? Because I'm looking at the pictures, I've seen this gingerbread stuff, and I'm imagining bits of that tease in there, but you just want to talk to that learning process. Because the forest is recognizable, and the abstraction comes in the action and the projection and the movement and things. Talk about abstracting the home.
Yeah, I think part of what I remember most is just being out in the backyard and just seeing the siding, seeing the windows. I think in the future I want to learn how to make French style windows, because that's what my grandfather made. He made all the windows and doors in a house, and he had a business. And so I think that is important to me, symbolically, and also lately. So I like windows. I like creating echo chambers that way. And then I was thinking about like I don't remember the inside of it like perfectly. I have to look back at photos, but I do remember the outside.
Okay, now I have one question. So looking at this, image and the pink of the house, it makes me think about gender and if that is, I don't think I heard you talk about it in your written presentation, but when you have this color pink, and the child being wearing pink, and that, it makes me wonder if that's, well, when I first walked in, I thought, well, maybe that's a symbol of, a feminine color or a clear color. So I just wondered if that was part of your thinking.
Yeah, I think I've always had a strong relationship with pink. As a child, I was always pushing against any like traditional gender roles or traditional gender colors or anything like that. I liked books. I made a show of not liking pink, even though I did. And so like coming back to it, everyone's sort of like, it's a nice color, and I accept that I like it, even though it can be construed as a girl color or in, old ideas, it was girl color. So I think like pink on clothes was always more offensive to me as a child than pink on our house. I liked that it was a bright color. And my grandparents together decided to make it pink, and so it looked like a fairy tale to me. And so like, I think it's more about creating a representation of my childhood home than like thinking about old or traditional gender roles.
Neon is so strong. I mean, it's such a, it carries on like a hotel, motel, holiday, kind of stuff. And it's such a strong component in this installation. Sets visually equal with projections and structures and things. Here's the question. The question is, your choice to leave the neon very structured, very geometric, very, recognizable versus having that as an opportunity to skew perception. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think I thought about making a window frame out of the neon, but then I thought it might be not really the vibe I was looking for. So I decided to keep it straight because I think neon is usually used for words, and I didn't want to have any words in it. And then I liked how it mirrored the window straight edges.
Do you have any questions about that?
So at this time, if anybody else has questions, please feel free to ask them.
You said that we could take pictures with it? That's
Yeah.
Awesome,
Yeah.
because I just didn't want to take pictures.
Yes.
Awesome,
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure before.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's what I'm looking for, is that people will want to take photos.
This is a little bit more of a comment, but if you do have a hashtag and you're, I think, having something that says you want people to, it might be nice to ask them to also like tag or like to have a description of what they're experiencing or feeling.
Yeah,
Because one of the things I think about with installations like this is it's a view into somebody else's world. It's very sort of voyeuristic in some ways. So we're able to see somebody else's experience and relate to them and also feel seen. So even if you aren't there as an artist, if somebody feels like they're looking into it, they also feel seen by you as artists. And I think that that's a nice way to continue that exchange, is to have them also share what they experience.
Yeah.
Any other questions that people have?
It's funny, the first thing I kind of jotted down when I scrolled here was a really generous sort of non-striving form of activism, which I think this is the reason it goes back to this kind of like sort of bravery when it takes this on. And I love your comment about you sort of controlling the structure of this. Because my question is, how activist could you go within these versus setting a separate kind of, it's like, this is the artwork, but I'm also having a conversation, I'm also having a panel or a workshop kind of thing. Talk about, I guess the differences between, sort of immersing or embedding that activist sort of stance in the piece versus it being peripheral, versus not secondary.
Yeah, I feel like, in my, in sort of in my line of inquiry, I think the piece is integral, because I'm so focused on, helping people understand how I see the world. So I think like, I would love to have conversations around it, but not around it.
All right, well, thank you so much. So at this time, we'll have everybody step outside of the room, and if you want to kind of stay close, we're going to have a little discussion and bring you back in. Sounds good.
Quickly take a picture so that, can I wait? Can I